think that the Lions and the Vikings, the gap between the Packers and the Lions and Vikings is not that big anymore.
Winning just 4 games from 11 is just another indication that it is a rebuilding year for most franchises, but not for the likes of a team with a history of winning like the Green Bay Packers. It's simply not good enough, and heads should roll because the Green Bay Packers are a disaster. Let's put their 2022 current season record under some context with what they have achieved in recent history. The past 3 seasons, they have not only managed to win 13 games in each of those years, but they also finished top of the NFC North. This year, the Packers are behind the Vikings, who are usually their main rivals to lift the divisional crown, and the Detroit Lions. The Lions, a team that is the whipping boys, the punching bag, the doormat of the division. Something isn't right in Green Bay, and here's what we think could be the reasons. Offensively, the Packers have become predictable. At the beginning of the season, it was fun to see how the Packers would set up, and they ultimately decided on a 2 running back scheme to give their quarterback Aaron Rodgers more options. It was a move that didn't work so well in week 1, but the following 3 weeks, they notched up victories, which included teams like Tom Brady's Buccaneers and an overtime win over Bill Belichick's Patriots. But that's when the winning stopped, because the scheme of 2 running backs could no longer hide their frailty in the wide receiver position. The Packers would go on to lose 5 straight, or if you prefer, 6 of their next 7 games. The way the team is set up to play requires superstars in the skill position, which the Packers do not have. There is a case to be made that running back Aaron Jones could be that superstar, and he does look great on the field, but he doesn't have that next level ability. So here are his stats for the year so far. Jones has 778 yards from 143 attempts, or 70.7 yards per game. To be an elite back, Jones needs to average more than 70 yards per game. For instance, Dalvin Cook of the Minnesota Vikings is considered to be having an off season, and he's still averaging more yards per game than Jones at 79.9 yards. There is a realistic assumption that the Packers thought that Jones would reach that superstardom level this year because they have another running back in A.J. Dillon who can also carry the workload, but he too has been disappointing. Only 467 yards from 117 attempts generated a below average of 42.5 yards per game. And if you thought the run production from these 2 backs were awful, here are their numbers when receiving the ball. Aaron Jones has 40 receptions for 248 yards, giving him 22.5 yards per game. And A.J. Dillon has 17 receptions for 109 yards, giving him 9.9 yards per game. That production is average, but when you tailor your offense around a 2-back scheme, you are wanting to see more from those running backs. They did score touchdowns though. Jones and Dillon combined for 3 rushing and 3 receiving touchdowns. But you see what we mean. They aren't enough in the NFL. The reason for the poor judgment was because of the mist from the aura of quarterback Aaron Rodgers. He exudes so much pull and weight that head coach Matt LaFleur thought that they could replace their star wide receiver Davante Adams with any other wide receiver on their roster because they had the 4-time league MVP Aaron Rodgers. Now, we don't blame LaFleur for thinking that Rodgers could steer the Packers ship into another divisional title. Rodgers has proven season after season that he is the guy you can rely on when the going gets tough, and he delivers no matter the weather or the reason. He's the quarterback you can place an entire team on his shoulders, and he will give you what you desire. Except it hasn't been the case so far this season. Rodgers isn't having an MVP-type season, which is baffling considering that he's been in the MVP race the past 2 seasons. We've gotten used to the fact that he would be putting up incredible numbers that give voters no choice but to award him the MVP title. And because he isn't at the height he was the last seasons, he is showing signs of mortality. He no longer has that aura of invincibility, which is convincing teams that they can get at this quarterback. Rodgers has been sacked 21 times this season. That is almost 2 sacks per game as a result of the rush from the defense he has already thrown for 7 interceptions. So to put things into perspective, in the last 5 seasons, he has never thrown for more than 6 in an entire season. With 6 games left of the 2022 season, we should expect that interception number to rise. And naturally, as the interception numbers climb, the touchdowns are expected to drop. He only has 19 from 11 games, and he is on pace to score 29 touchdowns. Now that may seem like a lot to a regular non-MVP caliber folk, but Rodgers had 37 touchdowns last season and 48 the season prior. There's something clearly wrong with the quarterback, and it's no secret. They miss wide receiver Davante Adams. Adams was the speedster and catch finesser that the Packers currently lack in the roster. But what's more obvious and should be highlighted is that there are no superstars on this team apart from an aging Aaron Rodgers. But let's dissect this wide receiver core unit. The main man that was supposed to step up and deliver was Allen Lazard. He is featured in 9 games and has been targeted the most by Aaron Rodgers with 66 passes thrown to him. Lazard only caught 38 of them, for a catch completion percentage of 57.6%. Lazard leads the team in yards with 529 and is tied for touchdowns with 5 alongside rookie Christian Watson. Watson has emerged as someone who is a late bloomer in the season and has recently been the man that Aaron Rodgers relies on the most for a score. Watson has a better catch completion percentage of 64.3% and is the clear favorite or receiver of the month for Rodgers. Now, over the last 2 games, Watson scored 5 times. That's all the touchdowns he had on the season. The wide receiver carousel doesn't end with Lazard and Watson though, as Romeo Doubs has entered the fray. Doubs also has a catch completion percentage in the 60s with 62% and also has 3 receiving touchdowns for his efforts. But as you can tell from the 3 main wide receivers, they're putting up mediocre catching numbers. That's the problem. That's why the offense is disastrous for the Packers. There are no stars on this team that can make plays, so the quarterback has to wield his magic and turn one of these wide receivers into a potential star. You can't fault Christian Watson or Romeo Doubs because they're rookies, but Allen Lazard should know better, having been playing with the organization since 2018. The only way for the Packers to solve their problem is if they go out and get a wide receiver who matches the skill set of Davante Adams. Someone fast, who can catch and creates quick separation. But to soften the hammering, we're giving the Packers there are positives that can be seen on the defensive end. The Packers defense is ranked 6th in points allowed, where they've also accumulated 8 interceptions and sacked the quarterback 22 times. They have also forced 5 fumbles on the year and recovered 13 fumbles. All of this to say that the Packers have a defense that keeps them in the game. But due to the ineptitude of the play calling and scheming on the offensive side, the Packers are where they are, and that's the 3rd in the NFC North. Head coach Matt LaFleur should bear the burden for most of the blame, along with general manager Brian Gutekunst. They realized too late that their team was in deep trouble and made 0 moves on the trade deadline to solve them. They could have gotten someone like wide receiver Chase Claypool, who is a much better option than the ones they have in that position. They could have traded for Kareem Hunt, who is an excellent back, and would have been an upgrade on A.J. Dillon should they remain focused on the 2 running back strategy. The point is, moves could have and should have been made, but GM Gutekunst didn't want to pull the trigger because of the belief he has in Aaron Rodgers. Now, we believe in Rodgers, but give him someone to throw the ball to, someone who won't drop a deep ball pass. Give this team a superstar that players can look up to and want to be just as good as or better than. This Packers roster is filled with mediocrity, and as a result, the Packers are a disaster and will most likely miss the playoffs this season for the first time since 2018. Do you think that the Packers can turn around this disastrous season? Please let us know in the comments below, but before you go, if you still want to watch awesome NFL content like this, please watch the next video that will pop on your screen.